The White House has announced a new trade policy starting August 7th that adjusts reciprocal tariff rates for its major trading partners. The tariff rate for South Korea will be at 15%, 10 percentage points lower than the rate proposed back in April. The foreign ministers of South Korea and the U.S. met in Washington, D.C., where they began planning a top-level summit expected within 2 weeks. The sides also reaffirmed their cooperation on handling a nuclear North Korea. Outbound shipments of South Korea came to a record high last month for any July. Strong demand for chips, automobiles, and ships backed the country's exports, despite uncertainties from a U.S. tariff policy. Right before the long-warned of August 1st tariff deadline expires, the Trump administration has finalized new rates for countries around the world, including South Korea, which will now face a 15% tariff rate. Our Park Jun-ah leads us off tonight.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday signed an executive order for the new reciprocal tariffs that will go into effect on August 7th. The imposition of new tariffs was pushed back from August 1st to 7th to allow Customs and Border Protection the necessary time to implement the new tariff system.
But I do know that the trade team has been working around the clock to try to be in correspondence with as many countries as possible. But if they haven't heard from us yet, they will in the form of a letter or an executive order by midnight tonight.
South Korea on Wednesday secured a last-minute deal to lower the reciprocal tariff from 25% to 15%. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the agreement allows significant investment for the U.S. and historic market access to American goods.
And South Korea will pay a 15% tariff rate, including 15% on autos, while providing historic market access to American goods like autos and rice. Korea will purchase $100 billion in American energy by 2028. And the centerpiece of this deal is that South Korea has agreed to invest $350 billion at the president's direction to revitalize American industry.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, speaking on CNBC, described the agreement between South Korea and the U.S. as a very good one. Bessent said South Korea was a special case because they had an election, a new government. So they were not in the position to fully negotiate. And they presented a very good offer. President Trump moved the offer up a bit, and we reached a very good agreement. On the same day, the White House posted a photo of President Trump with the South Korean U.S. trade delegation to social media, where it called the deal historic. Trump also took to social media to say details on South Korea's investments will be formalized during a visit to the White House by President Lee Jae-myung, set to take place in the next 2 weeks. Park Jun-ah, Arirang News.
And South Korea's tariff negotiation team, including Finance Minister Gu Yun-chul and Industry Minister Kim Jong-kwan, returned home Friday evening after trade talks with the U.S. Gu, speaking at Incheon International Airport, said opening the domestic rice market was not on the agenda during talks with the delegation's U.S. counterparts. That comes as Washington reportedly raised the issue once again, prompting Gu to note that such a U.S. announcement needs further analysis. Describing the negotiation process as a war, Gu said he'll come up with strategies based on the talks to actively respond in future detailed negotiations with Washington to eventually arrive at a win-win situation. Following South Korea's tariff deal with the U.S., neighboring and rival manufacturing nations are watching closely. China's South China Morning Post on a Friday spotlighted the Make American Shipbuilding Great Again, a $150 billion investment package led by South Korea. The report said the move gives Washington a chance to revive its shipbuilding sector and counter China's dominance in the industry. And Japan's coverage, meanwhile, zeroed in on the newly imposed 15% tariff on automobiles. Before Section 232 took effect, South Korean cars entered the U.S. tariff-free, while Japanese and EU vehicles face a 2.5% duty. And now the playing field has been leveled, a flat 15% for all exporters. Despite trade uncertainties, South Korea's exports managed to stay in the black in July, coming to a record high for any month of July. Our correspondent Moon Ji-young has this report.
South Korea's exports rose for the second consecutive month in July, thanks to robust demand for chips, automobiles, and ships, despite the impact of U.S. tariffs. According to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Friday, the value of exports last month amounted to over $60.8 billion, up nearly 6% compared to the previous year. This marked the highest ever for any July, setting record figures for the second consecutive month. The main contributor to this growth was semiconductors, the country's top export engine. Outbound shipments of chips rose more than 31% year-on-year, setting a record high for any July, backed by an increase in fixed prices of memory chips and strong demand for high-value products such as HBM and DDR5.
It seems true that there were movements to pre-secure inventory in areas like semiconductors and bioproducts before tariff impositions. Even if the increase in chip exports was initially due to advanced purchases, the current trend appears to be driven by robust demand, and we expect exports will not suddenly drop.
He added that the sector is expected to deliver a strong performance throughout the year on the growth of the AI market, since Korean companies manufacture high-value chips that U.S. firms cannot make. In terms of automobiles, outbound shipments rose nearly 9% thanks to strong performances in the EU, Latin America, and the CIS. But auto exports to the U.S. dropped more than 1%, with shipments of EVs plummeting nearly 98% due to U.S. tariffs. The Trade Ministry says the Korean auto industry avoided the worst-case scenario with Thursday's trade deal between Seoul and Washington, which reduced U.S. tariffs on Korean cars to 15% from 25%, the same rate for cars from Japan and Europe. Ship exports spiked, marking the fifth consecutive month of year-on-year increases, driven by robust demand for high-value ships such as LNG tankers. On the other hand, machinery exports plunged more than 17%, and steel exports dropped nearly 3% due to U.S. tariffs. Regionally, exports to the U.S. went up more than 1%, but it marked the first time, at least since the start of last year, that the country came in third place after China and ASEAN. While exports to the EU, India, and CIS nations rose, those to China dropped 3% on sluggish demand for petrochemical products and wireless communications equipment. Imports grew 0.7% to $54.2 billion, resulting in a trade surplus of $6.61 billion. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Jo Hyun met with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Washington on Thursday local time. Now, this was the first foreign ministerial meeting since the launch of the Lee Jae-myung administration, setting the tone and direction of the bilateral alliance. Our correspondent Oh Si-young has the details.
Seoul and Washington's top diplomats reaffirmed their cooperation on handling a nuclear North Korea and began planning a top-level summit expected within 2 weeks. On Thursday local time, Foreign Minister Jo Hyun and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met in Washington, D.C., marking their first official talks since the Lee Jae-myung administration took office in early June. According to their respective officers, the two officials discussed the South Korea-U.S. alliance and broader security issues in the region. Seoul's foreign ministry says they exchanged views on North Korea, agreed on its complete denuclearization, with the two officials deeming it necessary to strengthen cooperation on Pyongyang. They also agreed to enhance trilateral relations with Japan based on the Seoul-Washington alliance. The U.S. State Department's readout further expressed serious concern over North Korea's growing military ties with Russia and said Jo and Rubio both committed to the full implementation of international sanctions against Pyongyang. The statement also positioned trilateral cooperation with Tokyo as deterrence against regional threats, as well as noting the importance of peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. Jo and Rubio welcomed the sudden conclusion of trade negotiations by finance and trade officials the day before, and pledged to cooperate on supply chains and emerging technologies. In particular, Seoul emphasized a third pillar of the partnership in advanced technologies alongside security and trade cooperation. given that security issues were not substantially addressed in the trade negotiations as a so-called package deal. Continued discussions are expected on alliance modernization. The term refers to adjusting the role and scope of the Korea-US alliance in line with changing strategic conditions and as Washington presses allies to contribute more towards their own security. The summit between Presidents Lee and Trump could serve as a starting point, with a potential 2+2 ministerial meeting to follow. Speaking with reporters after their meeting, the Korean foreign minister said he and Rubio held constructive talks and have started coordinating for the leaders' summit. Trump declared the previous day that a meeting would be held within 2 weeks. Separately, Cho requested Washington's support and cooperation for South Korea's hosting of this year's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum in October, having sent an invitation to President Trump to attend the leaders' meeting. Rubio responded that he was well aware of this and would actively consider the request. Seoul Light Arirang News.
Acting U.S. Ambassador to South Korea Joseph Yun said U.S. President Donald Trump remains deeply interested in the Korean Peninsula during talks in Seoul today with South Korea's Unification Minister Chung Dong-young.
When President Trump first came in, I worked under him for about 2 years, so I know for sure he has a lot of interest in the Korean Peninsula.
Yoon added that the project Trump began with North Korea is still unfinished. And Minister Chung Dong-young, for his part, said he was counting on Trump's leadership to turn an easy peace on the peninsula into a lasting stability. A rare opportunity to explore 100 years of Korean art. At the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art is now showcasing 2 exhibitions that show the nation's artistic journey from the early 1900s to the 1990s. Our Pyeon Young tells us more.
100 years of modern and contemporary Korean art, now in one place. The National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art in Gwacheon is offering a rare panoramic look at a century of Korean art in an exhibition so large that the museum has separated it into 2 parts, Korean Modern and Contemporary Art 1 and 2. Part 1 covers the early 20th century, a period marked by Korea's rapid modernization, colonial occupation, and national division. Part 2 picks up after the Korean War and traces the evolution of Korean art through post-war reconstruction, industrialization, and democratization. Together, they feature more than 250 key works by over 100 artists, offering a rare panoramic look at a century of Korean art. Visitors say the opportunity to view both exhibitions together is a rewarding experience.
I've been waiting for part 2 because I love modern and contemporary art. I actually saw part 1 of the exhibition before, and I really liked how it was divided by time period. It made things easy to follow. Personally, I love the transition from figurative to abstract art during this era, so it was great to see works by artists like Yoo Young-guk and Lee Sung-ja all in one place.
Both exhibitions have sections called the Artist Room, dedicated to showcasing works by renowned artists such as Kim Hwan-gi and Yoon Hyung-gun. Another highlight is a section that re-examines under-recognized figures.
This section focuses on female modernist artists. These women weren't part of major art groups or ideologies, but rather, they explored their own unique styles. Their works add a rich new layer to the male-dominated history of Korean contemporary and modern art.
The exhibition closes with the debut of Sternbound No. 23, a major installation by contemporary artist Lee Bul. Suspended in air with steel, mirror, and film components, the futuristic piece explores themes of technology, the human body, and utopia.
There's growing interest in Korean culture both at home and abroad, but not many chances to explore the history of Korean art. We hope this exhibition gives visitors a clear, step-by-step look at how Korean art has evolved over the past century.
By presenting parts 1 and 2 side by side, MMCA Kwacheon allows visitors to follow a full arc of Korea's modern artistic transformation, from the days of colonization to modern global expression. The museum says it plans to keep the dual exhibitions running for at least 2 years. Hyunyeong, Arirang News.
Now, located in the heart of Seoul, Dongdaemun Design Plaza DDP is well known for an iconic light festival which has dazzled fall and winter nights for years. Now, the festival is lighting up summer for the very first time. Our Park Hyo-bin takes us there.
As night falls in summer, the carving aluminum surface of Dongdaemun Design Plaza bursts into color, shimmering with wave after wave of vivid digital light.
This is the first time media art is being showcased here at Dongdaemun Design Plaza during summer. Amid the tropical night, this is the perfect place to cool off and enjoy art.
The first summer edition of Seoul Light DDP expands beyond the iconic structure, turning the surrounding park and the historic Seoul City Wall, a defensive wall built during the Joseon dynasty, into a stage for immersive storytelling. Cascading visuals resembling waterfalls flow over ancient stone, while nearly 200 drop-shaped LED sculptures change color, creating a vibrant rhythm with the night. The central theme, Textures of Light, unfolds across multiple zones. Visitors are invited to walk along the city's fortress wall and encounter projections, laser shows, and kinetic installations along the way.
It's a lot of fun. I like the music. It's loud. It's exciting.
Artists from around the world also joined the summer edition of Seoul Light DDP. Through pulsing light and sound, a Polish art team transforms invisible algorithms into an experience that feels like a peek into the future.
The installation you see behind me, it's called Flux. It's done by our studio that is called Savery Komputery. We're from Poland, and we're grateful to be here. Thank you for inviting us to Korea. It's always a nice time to be here.
One of the standout moments from the opening ceremony is a hanbok fashion show, where traditional Korean garments are reimagined through light. The fashion show blends tradition with innovation as models and contemporary hanbok walk through radiant displays of media art. Since 2019, Seoul Light DDP has attracted over 1 million visitors annually and earned global acclaim, most recently sweeping the top 3 international design awards. The summer edition runs nightly from 8 to 10 p.m. through August 10th. As the city swelters, this luminous escape offers a breath of visual cool. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News.
It's Friday, which means it's a time for arts and culture. We have our culture correspondent, Choi Soo-hyung, here in the studio. Welcome back, Soo-hyung.
Thanks for having me here, Dami.
So you lead us in tonight. Tell us.
Yes, Dami. Currently, Korean shamanism is becoming a key part of K content, and you can see this in many works, just like such as the Netflix original animation, K-pop Demon Hunters, and Exhuma in last year.
Right.
Yeah, it is also growing a huge interest in Korean shamanism. So I took a closer look at why it's so popular and how shamanism has become a main part of new K content. Set in South Korea, K-pop Demon Hunters follows a popular girl group that protects the human world from evil spirits while uncovering a boy group of Grim Reapers known as 저승사자. The Netflix original animation has become the most viewed original animated movie ever, with his soundtrack also topping the Billboard single charts. Last year, the Korean film Exhuma drew an audience of over 10 million at home and became a hit in Asia and North America, fueled by themes such as feng shui and shamanic rituals. Today, one of the hottest themes in K content is K-shamanism, or K-musok in Korean, a traditional belief system incorporating rituals, divination, and faith in spirits and deities. With 1,000 years of history, Korean shamanism is a folk tradition where shamans, or budang, guide people by praying for good fortune and driving away misfortune.
Shamanism exists in many parts of the world, but in Korea, it is unique because of the strong role of budang. Their traditional music, costumes, and performances have deeply influenced Korean folk arts, giving Korean shamanism a distinct cultural and artistic character.
Unlike the Western view that defines the human world as good and the spirit world as evil, Korean shamanism sees shamans as mediators between the two, a belief that gives K-musok its unique power.
Western occult stories focus on exorcists, while K-pop demon hunters shows a more Eastern view. Luni, a half-hunter spirit, and Jinu, a grim reaper, reveal human qualities, moving beyond the simple divide of good and evil. Even Hollywood now borrows from Asian values, avoiding absolute dualism, showing how Eastern philosophy is shaping occult content.
Korean shamanism's power as a cult content comes from its cultural freshness rather than religion.
Korea is not tied to a single religion, allowing shamanism to keep its own identity alongside others. Unlike Japan, where cultural images were long ago exhausted by Japonism, Korea's shamanism remains fresh, offering untapped images that enrich today's content.
K-musok content is diversifying and becoming a key icon of K-culture with growing potential.
Well, I myself am a Korean and I'm quite familiar with Korean shamanism, but for our viewers who may not be too familiar with the idea, could you tell us more in detail?
Yeah, of course, Tommy. First, Korean shamanism is a traditional folk belief where shaman or mudang in Korean mediate and connect between humans and spirits. Tracing back to ancient rituals honoring heavenly gods by leaders, it is considered a national faith that honors nature, spirits, local deities, and ancestors, leaving a strong cultural legacy. As Professor Kim mentioned earlier, in Western society, ghosts are often seen as evil beings that must be driven out of the human world. But in Korean shamanism, shaped by the sentiment of Han, a feeling of resentment and sorrow, shamans comfort spirits, ease their pain, and guide them peacefully to the heavens, acting as a bridge between people and divine. As seen in the film Exhuma, the colorful and dynamic Kud ritual ceremony with loud music, dancing, and even night performances as one of the most important cultural traditions of Korean shamanism, offering spirits a joyful send-off.
You know, I do have to mention in K-pop Demon Hunters, you know, Jinu is supposed to be evil, but he's not scary at all, or ghostly, right? I like that shamanism-themed Korean content continues to be produced in Korean society, in Korean content from, you know, webtoons, Netflix originals. That seems to be a trend, right?
Yes, right. That's right, Dami. Yes, shamanism-themed content is also being produced consistently, non-stop in South Korea from, you know, just as you earlier mentioned, webtoons and variety shows, reality shows to K-dramas. And experts say the success of shamanic content is not just about shamanism itself. They point to Korea's positive global image, strong national brand, unique traditions, democracy, creative storytelling, and competitive cultural industry as factors that all work together. He added that as long as we keep embracing diversity and creating fan-centered content, it will continue, but we must keep exploring what makes Korea unique. He said that to keep Korean culture fresh, more diverse K-content is needed, content that carries a Korean touch while appealing to global tastes.
Indeed. Soo-hyung, thank you so much for the interesting coverage tonight.
Thanks, my pleasure.
Let's begin with some welcome news. Rain early next week will bring a slight break from the ongoing heat wave, especially to the western regions. But that means a steamy weekend this weekend. This morning, Seoul once again broke the record for the most tropical nights in the month of July with 23 sweaty nights. And of course, August is starting off under sweltering heat as well. Meanwhile, some parts of Gangwon-do province have seen those warnings downgraded or even lifted, including in Taebaek. But the rest of the country will sleep in the heat. Seoul begins the day at 27 degrees tomorrow. Chuncheon will start off the day at 24 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will climb to 35 degrees Celsius. Chuncheon and Jeju topping out at 34 degrees, along with very strong UV levels. Expect some scattered showers in parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces tomorrow. And until that rain relief comes, take care in this extreme heat. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.